Welcome to this solar activity and propagation report number 12 for August 28, 2014. And so we'll take a look at what's happened in the past week and what's to come, possibly. Predictions are always very hard. So in the past week, we had an uptick in solar activity. Solar flux rose and reached 140, 150 almost. And it came back down as sunspots were growing and disappearing from the solar disk. As of this morning, August 28th, at 1200 UTC here, you see that the K index is at 3. The geomagnetic field was pretty much unsettled in the past 48 hours. We had some coronal mass ejections, CMEs, coming from the sun because of two solar flares, M-class solar flares that erupted in the past week from the sunspots that we see here. And sunspot 2146 that's slowly getting to the edge of the sun is in a good position for another solar flare. You see here that space weather says chances of flare 40% for M-class flares, 5% for X flares on August 28th. So and this is the sunspot that actually gave us two M flares in pretty rapid successions, only about 6 or 7 hours apart. So that's why conditions are rather bad. Yesterday evening, I tried listening to the radio a little bit. Conditions were no good. I remember one thing that I tried yesterday afternoon was Radio Kuwait 15540 at around 2000 UT. Usually it's coming in quite well, and yesterday was totally inaudible here. And this morning, my beacon, my station that I use to check propagation, which is KBS World Radio on 15575, very weak, barely making it to S5, and I usually get it S9 and even better when things are quiet. So if you opened your radio yesterday and today and you're wondering, wow, is it my radio or something wrong? Well, no, the geomagnetic activity is quite high, so and lots of course, aurora borealis seen from different parts of northern and southern hemisphere. So things should, if there's no other flare today, things should slowly quiet down, and I expect by the end of the day today and by tomorrow that things will be more quiet. Solar flux, although not that high at 120, is still not bad, so propagation should actually be quite good as soon as the K index drops at 2 or less. As you see here, the A index for the past 24 hours is 20. 20 is not that high actually. It means that we did have unsettled conditions, but they weren't that bad, but they were enough to really mess around with our propagation. What's coming in the week ahead, that's the other thing that we will check for. First of all, you see here the K index rose to 5, which is the highest peak in the early hours of August 28th today. So and it's been rising at the beginning of August 27th, and you see here that the yellow lines K of 4. We had a little brief K of 3, then back to 4, and a little peak at 5 here. So it goes with the fact that there were two coronal mass ejections. So one hit created the first unsettled conditions, and probably the second one hit afterwards and peaked the K index to 5. Here in a big city like Montreal, to see aurora borealis, from experience, I know that the K index needs to reach at least 7 or 8. If I don't have a K of 7 or 8, I cannot see aurora borealis, even though we are close to the northern magnetic pole, and it is mainly in the Arctic Circle where they've seen aurora anyways. In the coming week, what we should have is of course, maybe a little more of these unsettled conditions if the sunspots flare. 40% chance, once again, of an M flare. So check that out. But the sunspot is getting on the edge of the sun, and it's actually moving out of reach. So as the sunspots turn, even though we have flares, they might not actually affect propagation. One thing it will do is that if there is a flare, there will be a momentary collapse of the propagation on the sunlit side of Earth. When there's a solar flare, usually we have no propagation on the sunlit side for an hour or two, and it comes back gradually. Sometimes it only lasts maybe 30 minutes, but what you see is that there's a sharp, basically the ionosphere becomes very absorptive. So when the solar flux happens, the solar flare happens, you get about 8 minutes later a radio blackout that can last anywhere from 15-20 minutes to a few hours depending on the flare. So these conditions can happen in the next 24 to 48 hours, and if they do, then maybe there could be a little bit of unsettled conditions in the geomagnetic field through late weekend or early next week. But as sunspot 2146 going to get out of view in the next few days, will probably get more quiet conditions, and solar flux will probably lower a little bit from 123 right now. I expect it to probably drop to 110, 105 by next week. So I don't expect it to really go below 100 because of the the sunspots we see on the sun right now. But that will be pretty much what we'll have in conditions. So here are the sunspots. There's some magnetic froth here on the left side. We have sunspots 21, 51, 50. There's a little something here on the left side still not numbered. So we get these groups of sunspots right now that are pretty much pretty big. And if you compare, you see here 2146 on the edge of the sun. Quite a big sunspot also. So expect conditions to probably quiet down as the days ahead go. And if there's no flares in the next 48 hours, I think things should stay pretty quiet for the next week. Expect good propagation as the K index goes down. We are getting into the fall propagation category, and in the fall here in North America, or even spring in the southern hemisphere, what happens is that when we are getting close to these periods of the equinox, usually we get really extremely good propagation. So expect the next month or two to be extremely interesting in propagation, and already I'm seeing great propagation, as you've seen maybe on my de-expedition videos. We are getting extremely nice propagation already here in North America. So things will improve as we are getting close to fall on September 23rd. So take a peek at your radios. Don't remember to take a look at these great websites for latest news of solar activity. Spaceweather.com, first of all. This is a great website for latest news about geomagnetic activity, chances of flares, always these great pictures of all these celestial events. dx.qsl.net/propagation for the latest indices. This is probably one I go the most, because here you get every 3 hours the K index, so our propagation, how it looks like. At 2100 UT, there's a solar flux measure that it changed, so because it changes only once a day on the solar flux, but the K and A index are changed every 3 hours. So that's a great way to have a real fast peek at what's happening on the sun. Here are little information about solar flux predicted, which should go down. You have the flares here. You see 3 M flares actually, M5, M2, and M3. 25, 24, 25 August. And so on. You have these pictures of the aurora borealis, how intense they are right now at the poles. And finally, solarham.net. Great, great, great spot for the latest news on what's happening with the sun. Always a little article every morning and every day on what's happening. Here we are talking about a G1 geomagnetic storm right now. That's why propagation is not as good as it should be. One thing, though, that I would like to mention about propagation when there's geomagnetic storms is that there are increased propagation conditions from certain part of the world when we are in storm. And I've noticed, for example, here in Montreal, that when we are in geomagnetic storms, east-west propagation is bad. So, for example, Europe will not come in very well here, but the north-south propagation is amazing most of the time. So, for example, a geomagnetic storm will black out most European stations, but will enhance propagation of stations from Brazil, for example, or South America, Central America. And I often had great DX to the south of me in geomagnetic storms. So these are things that you should check for. Don't turn off your radio because there's a geomagnetic storm. You just got to adapt and see what is enhanced and what's not by listening to different types of signals. And hopefully you enjoy these reports and will be tuning your radio. And remember, tomorrow at 1900 UTC, we will have a Google Hangout live for about an hour or two. And we'll be discussing shortwave, tuning around the bands a little bit, and answering any questions you might have. So thanks for watching and hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.